headlines from the news of the day. U.S. bombers with the RAF hot on the heels of the routed Nazi Africa Corps, blasting the daylights out of Rommel's desert supply bases. Our camera plane has a narrow escape, its glass splintered by machine gun fire, but the Nazi fighter goes to blazing death, a victim of Yankee gunnery. On the ground, through famed Hellfire Pass, the headlong pursuit of Britain's victorious Eighth Army is slowed by torrential rains that make a quagmire of the desert. But they're a long way from stalled, and the artillery hammers relentlessly day and night. With fast-moving advance columns of American-built M3s goes General Montgomery. Wearing a tank corps beret, the Irish deacon's son directs the chase, past Tobruk and Benghazi and on toward El Agheila, sledgehammering the foe without let-up. The infantry, desert-bitten veterans of many a fight with their backs to the wall, now write a chapter that history may well record as the turning point of this war, racing on the heels of the enemy. 900 miles from El Alamein, their starting point, the British pursued demoralized Axis armies. Longest sustained advance in military history, smashing 70% of the enemy's mechanized equipment in its tracks. Nazi warplanes knocked out on the ground. They never even got a chance to assemble these. Look at this spectacle. Acres of prisoners, dazed by the ferocity of Montgomery's attack, give up without a struggle. Among them, Nazi flyers fresh from the Russian front, who never got off the desert sands, and 9 Italian generals that brought in entire divisions. Richest prize, Nazi General Ritter von Thoma, commander of the Africa Corps, seized in his armored car by a British hussar. Arriving at headquarters, Rommel's second-in-command finds Montgomery a generous captor. Ever westward surge the British. Down comes the swastika as Rommel falls back toward Tripoli. Once again, victorious over Libya, flies the Union Jack. Today, we are making as many combat weapons, tanks, planes, guns, ships, as the entire Axis. Today, the United Nations together are turning out twice as many weapons as the enemy. But we cannot win a war simply by equaling or even outproducing our enemies. We must have a smashing superiority and keep it that way to the end. So I give you this solemn thought. The cost of keeping our freedom will be measured not in money, not in time, not in production, but in American lives. Keep this thought burning in your minds and hearts. The countless lives and untold suffering will be saved if extra effort at home brings victory just 1 month closer.
51st is fashion's keynote for women doing war work. Sweaters are out, too easily ignited and aptly distracting. A steel helmet may hide many a beauty, but it's better to be safe than sorry. For protecting flowing rocks from machinery, there's a combination hat and hairnet. Designed for the nation's 50,000 women shipyard workers, they're recommended for any industry. Shoes with steel toe caps are built to withstand a 1,300-pound shock. They might be good for dancing at that. Yes, the trend is definitely toward taking the glamour from the gals and putting it in the job. Miss America 1943 is really dressed to help win the war. Women's Day in the land down under. Red Letter Day for Australia's women in uniform, led by United States Army nurses. Those Yankee sisters of ours and their Anzac comrades are doing us proud. All Sydney cheers the Petticoat Army on parade. Even the Army's biggest ambulances are driven by our so-called weaker sex. The women of Australia are backing up their fighting men.
Forward from Kokoda, feeding their way along treacherous jungle trails. Advance units of MacArthur's Americans with jeep-towed big guns move toward Buna and Gona. Up to Jap beachheads at the toe of New Guinea, the Yanks push their way, then open up on enemy positions. Nipponese planes from the Japanese at Rabaul bombard American small boats in the cove and score a direct hit. Our bombers have repaid this loss many times over. Out of the Buna jungle, native bearers bring wounded Yanks. The fighting on this front is grim. Jap strongholds have been taken only at the cost of sweat and blood. Somewhere out in the Pacific, Jap destroyer patrols run afoul of an American cruiser, and the Nips get theirs, but lengthy. Under withering fire, 2 enemy ships are sent to the bottom, and U.S. rescue boats go to pick up survivors. Contrary to propaganda, those Nips like to live the same as anybody else. Not a suicide in a boatload. The fightingest ship in Uncle Sam's Navy. Proudly wearing her wounds from the Battle of the Solomons, the cruiser San Francisco comes home. From the bridge of this ship were uttered those fighting last words of Admiral Callahan. "We want the big ones first." And the San Francisco got 3 of the biggest. Yes, they've earned their homecoming. San Francisco made history challenging superior enemy craft at point-blank range in a night battle. To 31-year-old Commander Bruce McCandless goes the Congressional Medal of Honor presented by Admiral King. When Admiral Callahan was killed, he took over and fought those Japs to a finish. He's ready to repeat.
We realize that there's a great deal of unfinished business to be done in the Pacific, and it won't be long before we're back out there tending to some of that.
Men to keep America's ships a-sailing. 10,000 strong, they line up as a great maritime service training station is dedicated. This, the world's largest, will train some 30,000 seamen a year, ready to stake their lives against Axis U-boats and all the perils of the sea. Men who fight side by side with the Army and the Navy to deliver the goods for Uncle Sam. Camera headlines from the news of the day. For 3 weeks, by air and sea, they searched for men reported adrift on tiny life rafts. Now out of Pacific skies comes the radio flash to an America which had almost given up hope. Rickenbacker and 6 of his men rescued by a Navy flying boat. These are the first films of their arrival at a Navy base hospital, photographed by a Marine Corps cameraman. Gay Mary Rickenbacker shows the strain of his ordeal by sun and sea, the second time in 2 years that he's cheated death. The famous ace of World War I lived with his comrades through an epic of fortitude, winning out over exposure, hunger, thirst, and the relentless Pacific. Texas-born Captain William Cherry, 27 years old. The former airline pilot first rescued his weary but still smiles. Lieutenant Jim Whitaker, a Californian. They called him Iron Man. After 22 days adrift, he had strength to row. A comfy cot will look good to them all. Memento of their great adventure, the rubber boat that was their home for what must have seemed a lifetime. On its sides, they inscribed the crude log of their ordeal. Well, it's all over now, and Eddie will trade you the whole Pacific for one glass of plain water without salt. Thank you. Victory report to the President and the nation. Edward R. Stettinius, Jr., Lend-Lease Administrator, makes public some amazing facts about America's tremendous program of aid to the United Nations.
This is a United Nations war. We can win it only by combining our resources with those of our allies. The value of Lend-Lease aid to date is $7.5 billion. Our shipments of planes and guns and industrial materials and food have grown from small beginnings to the great quantities which are now approaching $1 billion a month. In the Soviet Union, most of the fighting has been done with Soviet equipment, but our aid has been important. In the past year, we and the British together shipped to the Soviet Union over the Northern Road alone more than 3,000 planes and 4,000 tanks. And Lend-Lease works both ways. In the North African offensive, our forces have been aided by the British on a large scale. We shall have to send more of many things in order to carry on the forward march of the United Nations. In addition, we shall participate with our allies in relieving suffering and distress of the liberated peoples of the reoccupied areas. This program has begun in North Africa. It will continue elsewhere and will hasten victory.
Just such a transport as this was the first American troop ship sunk in the South Pacific in a year of war. The President Coolidge, steaming into harbor with 4,000 troops aboard, rammed the mine, found it and sank. Below, the drama of rescue in these official Navy films. Rescue boats tossing on an oil-streaked sea, filled with Americans to be proud of. When the mine hit, they were ordered back to their quarters to speed rescue work. Taken off by units, as Navy lifeboats arrived, they waited their turns without panic, singing even as they faced death. This is the happy ending. Of 4,000, only 4 were lost, thanks to their magnificent courage.
I should like to tell you the progress we've made in the past 12 months in our war bond program. A year ago, we had only 700,000 workers investing only 4% of their earnings every payday. Today, more than 24 million workers are setting aside an average of 8.5% of their pay, so our soldiers and sailors and flyers can have the weapons they need. This is an achievement over here that will give encouragement to our allies and to our fighting men at their battle stations all over the world. Let's keep it up.
Yes, women are even working on the railroad. The first female section gang in the country. For Mike, the foreman, it's a dream come true. He not only gives the orders, but he has the last word. Swinging a 10-pound sledge on 6-inch spikes, they really do a man's job. Even Mike's wife is one of the gang. day. They push, push, push. But what does Mike do? Oh, he's head man, king of all he surveys. Sisters, this is war.
General Douglas MacArthur keeps his eye on everything from the New Guinea battlefront to Yankee troop training in Australia. He puts the accent on hand-to-hand fighting, just what they need for jungle combat. The infantry still carries the burden of attack in the bush country, where the Nips fight a sort of semi-guerrilla warfare. Mortar and machine gun experts clear the way for the infantry attack. Forward is the command every MacArthur man must learn, as the Japs have found out in New Guinea. We're aboard an American carrier operating in the South Pacific. Alongside comes a destroyer to transfer welcome passengers. The crew of a torpedo bomber rescued after a forced landing at sea. Ensign Pilot Rodenberg is first into the breeches buoy for the trip across. Saved because of a life raft that was made, perhaps, from the very rubber you're doing without. Well worth the sacrifice. The Navy has scores of such rescues to its credit. The transfer is made with both ships steaming at a steady clip. There's no stopping to do this job, for we're in dangerous seas. And so the names of 3 more fighting men are stricken from the grim list labeled missing in action. Time out from war for a bit of sport, and who said sailors can't swim? Anti-submarine nets keep out the sharks, and you'd think the boys didn't have a care in the world. Now for some fancy diving. Finding the anchor chain, well, you don't have to worry about the morale of our Yanks. Ports in the midst of a war-torn ocean. Welcome interlude after long months at battle stations. Symbolic of the day when the whole Pacific will become one great big Yankee swimming hole.
Lemons are doubly important now because fighting men and war workers need an extra lot of vitamin C. That builds up resistance to colds and illnesses. And the lemons are very rich in vitamin C, as you know. I read in the paper yesterday that most of our war workers are not getting enough vitamin C in their diet. Well, here's the cure for that. Santa Barbara County has been growing lemons for 75 years, and a great deal of the money from our lemon crop now is going right into war-saving stamps and bonds. You help put the squeeze on Hitler and Hirohito when you buy war-saving stamps and bonds.
Camera headlines from the news of the day.
Lenin Stalingrad on the Volga, symbol of the Russia that fights to the finish. For weary weeks of attack and counterattack through the bomb-gutted city, Soviet defenders battled stubbornly, street by street, house by house, man by man. German dead litter the gutters. During any lull in the almost continuous bombing, civilians search the pulverized ruins for whatever they can salvage. Smoking debris, where even a fragment of wall hides Soviet fighting men, death lurks in every alleyway, behind every battered door and shattered window. Under terrific bombardment day and night, a blazing city of tank factories and munition plants. Here, Russia meets and turns back Hitler's 1942 offensive. When history records the turning point of the United Nations fortunes of war, the chapter may well be headed Stalingrad. Somewhere south of Dina, on a strip of beach abandoned by the Nips only hours before, fresh American contingents, reinforcements for General MacArthur's army of Osses and Yanks, moving in for a final drive to tighten the grip on the last Jap stronghold in Papua. The natives are invaluable in this New Guinea campaign, moving supplies where a white man can hardly move himself, handling wounded with primitive kindness, guiding troops, and giving vital information on Jap positions. Well, the good old American game. Bullets for chips, but otherwise just like home. From North Africa, where British and American warships today stand guard over the sea lanes, come these latest official films. For most of the Americans, baptism by fire in the dark zero hour of that historic invasion, battle by night. Into towns to clean up snipers who chose to obey Vichy's command to resist. Quick work by Yanks and British comrades. The few resistors were soon rounded up. French North Africa now fights on our side. Concealing his age, George Hawley at 12 became the youngest Marine Corps private in history. Honorably discharged after 13 months in the Pacific War area, George tells Herald American reporters his story. Were you scared in battle, Sonny?
I was really scared when I saw my first action, but when I saw my buddies getting shot around me, that fear soon turned to hatred. Well, I'm too young to be in the Marines now, but when I get old enough, I'll be back there for that final victory. Those boys are doing a wonderful job down there. There's one thing we can do to help them. We can write them lots of letters and tell them we're behind them 100%. Let them know what we're thinking of them back here.
Speaking of winter sports, take a quick look at Chicago's Polar Bear Club enjoying the cool spell along Lake Michigan. A quick look, and then reach for a nice hot radiator. Brrr. While the country shivers in the coldest blast in years, polar bears push aside the ice floes and blithely get dunked. Yep, it takes all kinds of people to make a world. The oldest member of the club, who's 72, claims this is how he keeps young. Brother, that looks like the hard way.
The return of Captain Eddie Rickenbacker, welcomed by General Arnold and Mrs. Rickenbacker, who never lost faith while her husband was missing. Eddie's two sons, David and William, on hand for a fond family reunion. For a man 3 weeks adrift on the Pacific, Rick looks mighty fit. His first report is to War Secretary Stimson on his tour of fighting fronts. Next, a word for the American public. A very important word.
I've come to the conclusion that if we could bring back our combat troops from all parts and hellholes of the world, place them in the factories overnight, and take the war workers of the factories and place them in the trenches and the swamps throughout the world and on the battlefields, that we would double production overnight, at least within 30 days. Men and women of America, I mean that. I implore you to put forth every effort, a total, all-out effort. Remember, no effort that you can put forth that doesn't equal those of our fighting men on the fronts will be sufficient. And any sacrifices that you may hope to make can never even approximate those of our fighting men in the hell holes of war. Headlines from the news of the day.
Stand by for action. American task force in the Southwest Pacific. A Jap fleet somewhere in the distance has Jap bombers overhead, swarms of them. Our warships start blazing away as the Nipponese torpedo and dive bombers swoop low, straight for a U.S. flat top, identified only as Carrier X because of Navy regulations. Our planes are out blasting the enemy. On the deck before us, one of our chaps seemed to be in a hurry. Official Navy cameramen are on the job as the battle unfolds. High in the clouds, an American fighter swoops on a Jap raider, guns blazing, braving our own anti-aircraft fire. The cameraman sticks to his guns, shooting these spectacular battle scenes under fire. Enemy planes zooming in low, men throw themselves flat on the deck as bombs burst all around that never-say-die cameraman. Smoke from a hit billows up, there to the left, but the guns keep blazing away. Tail. They They stay there till they shoot him down. The heavens are peppered with smoke and burning lead. On the flight deck, we have to take cover, and it's rather hard right as Carrier X maneuvers at top speed to escape the hail of jet explosives. That swarm of Jap bees keeps coming, but every gunner on every ship's on the job to save this carrier. If we ride out this storm of hits and near misses, we're good. Carrier X shudders with every explosion, but stoutly battles on. There's work on the flight deck. Our planes are coming back for more fuel, ammunition, and bombs to blast the Jap fleet. That one ran into trouble. The men work feverishly to clear the deck. There's not a moment's let up. We're bagging plenty, but those Japs keep pouring in. You're seeing some mighty expert seamanship as our skipper keeps maneuvering. In the distance, bombers blazing on the sea testify to American sharpshooting. Don't forget, there's plenty going on at the bow end, too. But our cameraman has his hands full with the action back here. Brothers with a near miss. See how concussion bounces that plane around like a toy. Drapes it over the side. There's only one Jap plane left in the sky and we're gunning for him. The tracers tell us we're on our target and there he goes. Well, the battle's over. Fires from the bomb hits are under control. But along the entire whole-strewn flight deck, there's work still to be done. Battered planes that are back from giving it to the Jap fleet have to be patched up, and many of them will fight again. Carrier X has once again given a good account of itself. Once more she's proved her Yankee fighting stamina, and come through the ordeal of battle with flying colors. Light from the dark continent, light of hope for the United Nations. Past ruined Benghazi's unscarred cathedral rolled Montgomery's relentless legions. Final victory in sight. In the smoke of Axis ships burning in the harbor is written the epitaph of Axis hopes in Africa. One by one, Rommel's ports of supply are closed. Rommel's army is on the run. The Nazi myth of invincibility lies buried in Africa's sands. Montgomery's order is forward. No rest for the enemy. Around the Axis, as America enters the old world's battle arena, is being forged a ring of steel. From east, west, and south, swords of vengeance point at Hitler's ill-gotten empire. New fronts are in the making for his undoing. As 1942 ends, the Soviet tide has turned against Hitler, rolling the Nazis back along the 1,000-mile frozen battle zone. German dead litter the icy steppes. Nazi graves mark their road of retreat. Under Joseph Stalin's leadership, Russia masses vast new armies dedicated to the annihilation of the invader. Russia's second winter offensive goes forward on a far-flung line. The Nazis fall back before Moscow, Stalingrad, and in the Caucasus. 1943, the tide of war is running against our enemies. Years then sees Douglas MacArthur, commanding United Nations troops, begin to turn the tide on the South Pacific, begin the Herculean task of hurling back the Jap, pushing through the wilds of New Guinea, across the hitherto impenetrable Owen Stanley Mountains. Yanks and Australians blast the enemy's last foothold on the island. Here, too, is exploded the myth of the super warrior. Jap prisoners, Jap dead on Guadalcanal, testify to the fighting prowess of the U.S. Marine and his Army comrades. The passing of 1942 sees new battle lines drawn in the Pacific. Its long supply routes established, the United States Navy, stronger than before Pearl Harbor, moves eastward. From Australia, MacArthur's bombers blast Jap strongholds to the north. In China, a rearmed nation raises anew the banner of freedom.
God of the free, we pledge our hearts and lives today to the cause of all mankind. Grant us victory over the tyrants who would enslave all free men and nations.
Tortured people of the earth echo the President's prayer. The enslaved, the starved, the degraded, who've seen their loved ones massacred, look to 1943 for the doom of the demons who made the world a place of horror. The torch of liberty shines bright as 1943 dawns. Behind their determined leaders, free men everywhere look for the day of liberation and justice for all. Montevideo Harbor for the battle-scarred Admiral Graf Spee. Her fire-control tower smashed, her planes wrecked, her hull splintered by shell fire, the battered 10,000-ton German pocket battleship prepares for her rendezvous with death. From topmast to waterline, from bridge to main battery, despite hasty repairs, she bears the marks of a hot 18-hour sea fight. Expectant thousands throng to the waterfront. They come to watch the curtain rise on the last act of the war's most spectacular sea drama. The Nazi warship must go or be interned. In his gig, Captain Langsdorff, skipper of the Graf Spee, hurries to his ship. He gives no hint he has secret orders from Hitler that seal her doom. Sailing time is here. The Graf Spee begins her last voyage. She sails as if to engage the enemy once more. Only her captain aware that this $19 million monster sails to suicide. Offshore, she anchors, waits for sunset. Sunset that spells oblivion. Then, flaming finale. The suicide ship, blown up by her own captain, surrenders to the sea. Ablaze from bow to stern, the Admiral Graf Spee is scuttled, rather than run the gauntlet of waiting British cruisers. Safely ashore come the Graf Spee's crew, 1,039 officers and men, who land in Argentina after sinking their ship. Captain Langsdorff, just a few short hours later to share the fate of his ship, protests their internment. But interned they are for the duration of the war. smoke and flames still pouring from the smoldering hulk of a once mighty warship. Blazing contrast this to the gallantry of the World War admiral for whom this suicide craft was named. 25 years ago, Admiral Graf Spee went down fighting to the last against a superior British squadron not so far from the spot where his namesake lies, scuttled in the face of the enemy. In a holocaust of flames, the secrets of her construction are consumed. Secrets that made her the most powerful fighting ship of her size. Funeral pyre of the pride of the Nazi Navy. Funeral pyre of a sea raider that challenged the might of the British Navy and failed. Like below sea level, Uncle Sam's bombers skim across forbidding Death Valley, lowest point in the Western Hemisphere, as Army flyers test their ships in extremes of altitude. Farewell silhouette on America's Sahara. Then the formation soars into the foothills, the badlands of song and story. Up they go, climbing to 16,000 feet. Time for the cameraman to take on oxygen. Still going up, over the Sierra Nevada range, unusually bare of snow for this time of the year. The objective's famed Mount Whitney, towering 14,500 feet in the air. A successful flight from lowest to highest point in the USA. The big city gets its last view of the giant dirigible Hindenburg, victim of one of the most appalling disasters in aviation history. This is the airliner's 21st Atlantic crossing and the first for 1937. Carrying 39 passengers and a crew of 60, seas laid amid her spacious decks and modern salons on a previous voyage, bespeak the gaiety and anticipation with which her travelers greeted their journey's end. Delayed 12 hours by storms, the passengers calmly view the magnificent panorama of the city with no thought of what is to come. Finally, the cruising ends, and Captain Max Pluss, making his first trip as commander, turns the ship for the flight to Lakehurst. With no hint of impending tragedy, Captain Pluss brings the Hindenburg over the airport at dusk. On board, passengers are eagerly awaiting to disembark, many filled with thoughts of home. Everything goes smoothly as the ship is gradually lowered. Ballast is dropped. At less than 300 feet from the earth, the ground crew of 200 sailors and civilians grabs the rope. In 5 minutes more, the ship will have landed. Then, without an instant's warning, the Hindenburg goes to her doom. The blazing airship hits the ground many leaps, some to safety, some to death. Horrified crowds rush to the scene as before their eyes nearly 200 die a dreadful death. Those who escape by jumping have been dragged away by the ground crew, braving the terrific heat at the risk of their lives. Hotter glows the fire as the palatial and greatest air funeral pyre for many, but also a fiery monument to the heroism of Uncle Sam's ground crew, who faced death that others might live.
Camera headlines from the news of the day.
Mission for tonight. Bomb raid over Italy. From England, the RAF taking off to play a vital role in the Greater Light Offensive in North Africa by hammering Axis supply ports on the continent. 4-engine bombers, Sterlings, Halifaxes, Lancasters on the high road over the Alps. 1,500 miles round trip from Britain to Genoa. Nearest enemy transport base for Tunis and Bizerta. We're looking down on Genoa now. Lighted by flares dropped to illuminate our targets. 2-ton and 4-ton blockbusters hurtling down. Incendiaries unleashed over the heart of harbor installations. In what Rome radio described as Genoa's heaviest bombing of the war. British blitz in slow motion. There in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, a shower of bombs ticketed for the shipping area that supplies Rommel's panzers in Africa and Goring's air bases in Sicily. Each chain lightning step of fire, a series of bursting bombs. 6 raids like this in less than a month. 1,000 acres of docks and railway demolished or left burning. All part of the plan of attack along the second front. Genoa battered and ablaze. The RAF is teaching Mussolini's deluded people what it means to take it. Cargo of bad medicine for the Japs in the Southwest Pacific. P-38 Lightnings with a reputation as the fastest high-altitude fighters in the world. From an Australian port, they're towed to assembly points to make ready for battle. American mechanics put them together. There's firepower aplenty, 4 machine guns and a cannon in the nose alone. Well hidden at secret airdromes in northern Australia, they're ready for action. Here are some of the American sky fighters who fly them, confident at last that their planes are more than a match for those Jap Zeros. Taking off along metal runway strips. Already they've met the enemy, and the Japs have learned that American lightning strikes deadly hard and fast. National Food Administrator Claude Wickard and War Information Director Elmer Davis announced rationing of canned food products. Mr. Wickard speaking.
The method we are going to use in rationing canned fruits and vegetables will be the point system, which is the best way I know of for getting the job done, and still giving the greatest range of choice to both consumers and grocers. Pending the time when the program goes into effect, I am confident that Americans will have the common sense and patriotism not to hoard dried fruits and canned fruits and vegetables, or any other food for that matter. If you want to help the Axis, one of the best ways is to hoard food.
Now a word from Mr. Davis.
We are using our food supply as a weapon positively, so distributing it that the American Army and Navy and the American people will be well nourished. Yes, and so that the armies of our allies will be strong too.
This is War Ration Book number 2, due in February. It uses points varying in number for different commodities. Your local rationing board will make everything quite clear. Meanwhile, buy carefully, don't hoard. Be patriotic. Peruvians have something to cheer about. President Prado, 3 years in office, has brought new security to the Republic. U.S.-built tanks and those famous American Jeeps lead the anniversary parade, a dramatic example of how Lend-Lease is strengthening our good neighbors to the south. From the reviewing stand, President Pardo sees a modern army ready to fight should Peruvian independence be challenged by any nation. Chile begins the new year with a great international exposition. The nation's fairest senoritas are on hand to welcome guests from all parts of the Americas. President Rios officially opens the Carnival of Commerce. At the United States Pavilion, he's guest of our ambassador. Good neighbors all under the flag of freedom. From the White House, broadcast to Americans wherever they may be, at home and on every continent of the globe, the President's holiday greeting. With the dark days of 1942 behind us and a brighter year ahead, there comes his message of cheer.
I give you a message of cheer. I cannot say Merry Christmas, for I think constantly of those thousands of soldiers and sailors who are in actual combat throughout the world. But I can express to you my thought that this is a happier Christmas than last year. Happier in the sense that the forces of darkness stand against us with less confidence in the success of their evil ways.
With the President, all America prays for a victory Christmas in 1943. From France's colonial legions come new brothers in arms for the Allies. Moroccan and Algerian units mobilizing for the Battle of Tunisia to fight on our side. Volunteers transformed almost overnight from a potential Axis army into reinforcements for our Yanks. From enforced collaboration with the Nazis to free collaboration with the Americans. They take their place with fighting Frenchmen heading for the front, and they rate an American salute. French General Nogues and American officers in a supreme gesture of amity at the graves of Yanks and Frenchmen. With Admiral Darlan's assassination, Nogues becomes an even more forceful figure in African affairs. Yes, Miss America is out here too. Army nurses who seem quite happy, far, far from home. America's own Brigadier General Jimmy Doolittle at 12th Air Force Headquarters, with which the President's son, Colonel Elliot Roosevelt, is seeing action. General Ike Eisenhower presenting the third star to Lieutenant General Clark, whose secret pre-invasion mission smoothed away. Under General Eisenhower, the British, the French, and Americans are battering the Nazis back in Tunisia, and Old Glory floats proudly above the ruins of an Axis dream. Family with the quintuplets visit the United States. The famous five preside at 5 ship launchings, each quint christening a ship. Superior, Wisconsin, another quint, another ship. A series of launchings and christenings. And so on until there are 5. Quints doing their bit for war tonnage, after which they sing a song, the quintuplets becoming a quintet. the Far Eastern enemy. An American submarine bombards a Jap patrol boat and sets it afire. The motion pictures made by the Navy show an episode in the ceaseless assaults of the American undersea fleet against the sea communications of the Japs.
To the world's most modern naval training station, you may now point with pride, as Uncle Sam's $50 million school for Blue Jackets turns out its manpower for that Navy second to none. A town within a town, built to accommodate an enrollment of 25,000 men. 6 drill halls like this, they're bigger than Madison Square Garden. Mess halls also for 6 complete and self-sufficient units. In the huge swimming pools, they acquired a traditional Navy fundamental. The American sailor is as much at home in the water as aboard a ship. Streamlined calisthenics to attain their physical peak. Ready for their battle stations and the eventual cruise to Tokyo. Hiya, Tojo, they do mean you.
And General Eisenhower visits a British battleship. In any landing on the Mediterranean coast of Europe, American troops will have the collaboration of the British fleet. A joint task for Eisenhower and British Admiral Cunningham. Here he is the host to the American general, who does a bit of climbing. The Tunisian triumph puts emphasis on invasion plans, though some argue that instead of concentrating on Europe, we should launch a major blow against the Japs.
Like a seagull coming to rest on a ship at sea, the Army Air Force's new type helicopter alights on the deck of a moving tanker. And therein lies the story of what looks like the doom of the convoy's greatest hazard, the prowling enemy U-boat. For as the cargo ship maneuvers through the sea lane where the wolf packs are known to be, the wingless craft goes along. The pilot looks down into the ocean depths, where any lurking sub will present a target like a clay pigeon in a shooting gallery. He directs the depth charge fire. He may return to refuel, then again take to the air to watch another U-boat disappearing into the custody of Davy Jones. Air protection to span the seas. The U-boat menace licked. What then, Adolf?
This voyage of the convoy witnessed 2 dramatic episodes of the Battle of the North Atlantic, the rescue of survivors in a heavy storm, and the destruction of a U-boat by the Coast Guard cutter Spencer, which is tossing there in the howling tempest. In a litter of debris, survivors are afloat, and the task of making rescues in that rough sea takes plenty of skillful seamanship by the rescue crews. They do it, though, filmed by the Coast Guard, an exploit of life-saving. Depth bombs, and a U-boat below the water is blasted. The hostile submarine disabled is forced to the surface, an undersea prowler that will prowl no more. That patrol craft is presented to the Greek government by President Roosevelt, there with the Hellenic ambassador, at the Washington Navy Yard. The Greek sailors will now man the boat.
This ship of war, built by American hands in an American yard, is delivered under the terms of Lend-Lease to fighting Greeks, wherever they may be.
In behalf of the exiled Greeks, the gift is accepted by Ambassador Diamantopoulos.
The Greek nation will be deeply touched by this noble gesture of a great leader and an inspired defender of the cause of freedom for all.
The Hellenic sailors will take the anti-submarine speedster into the battle for the freedom of their country.